right, we're back talking NASCAR on Prime Sports Network. And look, I must say, it's not football season yet, but out of all the other shows we have on this channel, this is the most popular.
Hey, all right. Look at us.
Yeah. So we're going to keep them coming. Matter of fact, we just recorded Eric's IndyCar report. So that's going to be available today, same day, Thursday, as is the NASCAR show. So both reports will be available today, Thursday, and then F1 with CJ tomorrow. So that should be up in the early afternoon. We're going to record about 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. So all three series, matter of fact, double Indy, right? You got Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, 2 in a row. Saturday, Sunday, and what I don't like is Sunday IndyCar is at a little after 2, green flag, and NASCAR is, I think, green flag at 2:50. And
yeah. Whatever.
Same time.
I'm getting so sick and tired of trying to correct these guys. I just really am. It's just annoying. And there's nothing really to talk about with last week, Monday's race. Wow, thank goodness we waited till Monday for that. So, and I got to assume that even though we have nowhere near the audience of the type of, and remember, this is a sports network, so this is not a NASCAR network. And we've referenced before that Eric Estep does a really good job. He's a diehard fan. He goes to a lot of races. He does an excellent job. I do not agree with his opinion most of the time, but he does an excellent job, and that's all that matters. And I've said repeatedly over and over again that I am not a diehard fan like Eric. It's not what my life is all about. It's one of my favorite sports, but it's not the favorite for me, and I'm not diehard. So there's a big difference with the opinions of that crowd and his audience as opposed to ours, I believe, because I think if most people were to believe and really trust or go with Eric's opinion most of the time, they probably aren't watching us. I can't imagine that's the case. And here's an example. So I went online because I said, I've got to find out how he responds to the race on Monday. Because it was so bad. I have to find out how he fluffs this up. And not only did he, he didn't say it was great, but he did make compliments. But I was looking at the comments. And here are some of the comments on the race, okay? Let's see. Aaron Thompson, 6603. Great race. Happy for blah, 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 blah. Mike Palco, 8446. New Hampshire has really grown on me over the years. I love green flag pit stops at tracks of this size. Bike Scout 22, fantastic race. Exciting, close racing all race. Comers and goers and various strategies. Third or fourth best race of the season. I'm not going to go on. I don't need to go on. Eric, what am I not seeing?
Saw a lot of Truex leading. I didn't see a whole lot. I like the old school long green flag runs, but I also like to see passing. There wasn't a lot. The comer and goers were just pitch cycle strategy, but and that one towards the end where it kind of flipped kind of the middle of the pack. The top was just too good. I mean, Bell did come back multiple times going to the back and making his way back forward, and then he wrecked, and then Bubba had a couple bad pit stops and moved his way through, but that's really about it.
And Blaney had the bad pit stop when he was hanging with Truex and thought maybe, and then of course pit stop and the race was over. It was the old pit crew for Ryan Blaney coming back to
back to the Blaney. Let's say the 12 team because this one was not on him at all. He was second entering the pits and 23rd or whatever at the end. So. It was not a great race, and that's the reason why NASCAR is going to go test now at Richmond in a couple of weeks to try to perfect this short track. They were supposed to test there on Monday and Tuesday this week to try and improve the show, but because the race and the weather getting rained out from Sunday to Monday, they moved the test to Richmond to try to help. So let's hope they can find something. They tried to go with the tire that degraded more, and it just wasn't enough. So they're trying. I'll give them an effort. They've got that test coming up. They're trying, but it's just not good enough.
Yeah, but so these guys, they loved it. Fourth best race of the year.
Yeah, that
what am I missing?
That's baffling. I don't know. I don't think that was the top 5.
What is it? What is the difference? Like, and again, they're there, especially, and it's interesting, and because we had a couple of viewers, I think it was on Discord where we had this conversation. I believe it was where we had a couple of guys that had one of our viewers mentioned the fact that they something about New Hampshire. And then one of the others, it could have been YouTube, but one of the others said, "Hey, by the way, I'm also from New Hampshire area."
Oh, I think that was on Discord. Or did you now that you say that?
It was on Discord?
I thought so.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through it right now and see if I see it. But
maybe it was once you forwarded to me. Maybe it was on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it had to been YouTube. I don't see it on Discord.
Okay. So anyway, we had a couple of our viewers, and you know who you are, and so one of them basically referenced the fact that I'm not going because of the rain. There's no way I'm going. I'm prefacing, no way I'm going to the track to sit through potential rain delays, et cetera, and then to watch a pretty boring race anyway was what he was saying. So again, that's what I'm saying. Our viewers have more of our point of view on things, which is normal, and they have theirs. So I just don't get it. But doesn't mean their opinion is wrong. Again, I want to stress that. It's just that's their opinion. They have a different outlook of what they're watching, what NASCAR is to them. For me, I'm just like the regular Joe handicapper, love the sport. All I care about is who wins the race. Sure, I understand the little things that go on. No question. We have fun with it. Otherwise, we wouldn't do shows. We just do a 5-minute report if all it was about winning races and picking races. But not to the extent of these guys that are looking at something I just don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, because my takeaways from it weren't actually racing on track related. Because when I watch it, Truex is, to me, probably the championship front runner. I think they even said on the broadcast multiple times, which what we said on the show last week, a lot of Loudon you can carry over to Phoenix and vice versa. So this, to me, that's why I made mention was more of a not race specific, but bigger picture specific, that if this is the similar guys up front in Loudon or in Phoenix later in the year, then Truex has got to be a championship front runner.
Yeah.
Harvick, 4th. And we saw he should have won Phoenix in the spring race. So definitely got to look for it. Denny Hamlin was 7th. We talked about him for a while being championship front runner. Joey Logano, runner up. Granted, I don't think he had the speed necessarily all day to win, but runner up, he's starting to get better. I wrote about that.
And remember Blaney in last year's race should have won, probably would have won, and almost won this race.
Yep. So I feel like the same guys of what we thought would and are thinking long term. That was kind of more my takeaway. It wasn't just the 301 laps that we saw Truex just put a whooping on the field.
Yeah.
It was more bigger picture. And Truex opened the retirement door. I had a lot of takeaways on that that I wrote about this week. That he still hasn't closed the door on retiring. I would have thought by now he could read some of his comments, and I put it from last year with what he said versus what he said last year. He thought, why would I walk away from a winning team? I want to come back. I'm hungry. This year it's not all about winning. To me, it kind of sounds like his foot's out the door. He's trying to talk himself into coming back rather than the other. So it was kind of takeaways of that. Like, again, I said it's more off track or bigger picture than on track.
Yeah, I could see him looking at two ways. One, he wins a championship. I'm going out in style.
He mentioned that.
He doesn't win, and it's like, yeah, but I got to do this all over again, and I've already won a championship. So, yeah, I could look at it both ways, where it's most likely the end of the road as well. Maybe it should be, especially if he wins a championship, and he's already got one. So, all right, I did find it a little interesting, and I know we're getting there, but I kind of thought it was a little bit early to take a look at playoff points. Just a little bit early. When they showed it, I was like, whoa, playoff positioning. That's a little early, but okay. Why not? It's a long race. It's kind of boring. You might as well talk about it.
That's why they do that. And if you notice a little insider insight that I know, a lot of times they talk about points. Or this race, you probably saw it multiple times. When you see let's go through the field, and you start, hey, William Byron, let's go down to Marty Snyder. What do you got on William Byron? And they go from second to 30. You know why they do that is because they know the races get strung out, and that's the fill time. That's a little insider tip. So when you hear, let's go through the field,
right,
that's probably your break if you want to get up and move around because they know that the caution's probably not coming anytime soon, and they're filling a gap. So when you hear through the field, they're filling a gap. Just some inside knowledge that I have there. And they did that a lot. So that's where the playoff points came from because they're looking at Truex leading the points. You win the regular season, you get 15 more playoff points. You swept the stages and won the race. So there's 7 more. So that's why they were looking at that. But, yeah.
Look, and even though, handicapping-wise, even though I did not pick Truex like you guys did, I still came out of that saying to myself, well, yeah, this is why I think I've been pretty successful this season is because that just hasn't happened all season, is someone dominating a race and the best car winning. And really, if you look at it, I believe, because all I needed was one mistake, just one.
Yep.
And then I had second, third, fourth, fifth. So so that's why I still think that in the parity we have today, I just think that it's still a little bit better sticking with, and this is also a tip for anybody out there that's just getting into handicapping any sport, especially even NASCAR, is if you have a plan, you stick with the plan. Once you start deviating from the plan during a season, then you could screw everything up, and chances are you can just go really bad, and then because you're chasing, and you don't want to chase. If you have a strategy and you believe in it, you should stick with it, because I stuck with it, and I was really, what was I, really far back, made it all the way back to basically even because I stuck with the strategy. And that's why I'm not going to all of a sudden change just because the favorite won. But who knows? Maybe we'll be on a run of 3 or 4 straight favorites winning races. That could happen. But you got to stick with your strategy. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So here we are at Pocono, and thank goodness there's only one race a year. So we got that. We were begging for that for years, and it happened. So, and thank goodness we don't have 2 New Hampshire races, right?
Yeah, no, glad they're down to 1 in this one. That's why I always say it's hard to judge these grouping of races we're in right now because, this one doesn't translate to anything.
Yeah.
New Hampshire, granted, it translates to Phoenix and tracks like that, but that's our only visit there. Richmond's a return trip, but then you go to Michigan, the only visit there, Indy Road Course, Watkins Glen. This is a weird stretch of races too. It's more about finding momentum than anything else.
2.5-mile track, the longest in the series. So only one of the last 6 winners of Pocono started in the top 4 rows. And Elliott did it last year, 3rd, but please recap last year's results, which we'll be getting into. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch. What happened?
They said it was the wrap on the front end was wrapped over before whatever was on the car that was illegal that didn't meet the specifications. The wrap, they said it shouldn't have been there per se. So the top 2 cars were DQ'd. Did not basically disqualified. Put them in the back. 3rd place, Chase Elliott has scored as the winner, despite leading as many laps as you and I together. He led no laps and he won the race.
Yeah,
so,
I've never seen that before. Has that ever happened?
I'm sure it has, but nothing's coming on top of my brain. But I'm sure it's happened maybe once or twice. But that's rare, obviously. And he didn't lead a lap and he won the race. So he could use those fortunes, but I don't know. I don't know what to take from it because they say it doesn't have an advantage. And my always thing was then why'd you have it there if it didn't have an advantage? So
now when were they disqualified?
After. I think it was
how long after?
I can't remember if it was the month, it had to be I think it was at the R&D center, so we're probably talking a day or 2.
Yeah, because I'm just checking our picks from last year in this race, and you and CJ both had Busch and Hamlin, and but you also had Elliott, and the way we scored it was with Elliott with the win.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so I'm just trying to remember. I don't think it wasn't like a Monday thing, right? It was a race day decision.
Oh no, it was the race day. Yeah, because it says I just looked it up. It was after inspection.
Yeah. So I was
When
like,
we go
what, a
back
couple
there, so
hours after the race?
probably a couple hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, something we've talked about before with the sport and with gambling, and we've had the situation or two pop up. They have to do something about that. It ain't good. Not for the gamblers, not good. So, all right, let's get into this week's. And I just mentioned the fact that it does not matter where you qualify, which I find kind of interesting. But do you think that's because of all the different strategies that seem to play out, and the strategies is really what wins this race?
It is, because it's one that I would like to see them also do away with stages like we do. And granted, the stages help bunch the field back up, but these guys run this race like a road course. They count backwards, so that you can pit here before the stage and not lose a lap. So that's what a lot of teams do. So some of these teams that don't need points, they're going to do that. And with guys that are needing wins, they're probably going to position themselves whichever strategy looks like it's working right around 2 to go before the stage is in. So that last spot, 2 to go, pits are closed, you can't pit. They're going to manipulate whether, it looks like we should probably stay out and have the track position and pit this amount of laps after the stage starts, the next stage starts, or let's go ahead and pit and get the track position for. So that's why, because you have strategized that. It's more of a strategy race, like a road course than a true oval or triangle in this one.
Do you happen to know about the weather? Because anytime they go to Pocono, it seems like
I saw yesterday low to mid 70s and sunny. This is the first weekend since NBC took over that rain's not going to be a factor. So right now it looks completely fine.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, that's also a kind of weak kind of deal for the network. But yep, does look like it, and that's cool. Because it does usually rain there. All right, only one Ford has won in the last 10, but 7 Toyotas have won in the last 10. So Toyota seems to be the way you'd want to go. Chevy, yeah, mixed in there. I'm not worrying all that much or too much about Ford, or at least a driver like Blaney, because I think we've already seen this year on a couple of tracks, including Charlotte, that Blaney's stepping up this year. He's no longer going to tracks like he used to that you just kind of already gave up and said, nah, he's got no chance. He's not going to do well. And matter of fact, that Coke race, he was a heavy underdog for that reason and won. And even last week, not many people thought, I don't really think he's going to be a factor, and he actually almost was. So I'm not. So yeah. So Blaney and the Ford, the other Fords, you tell me. But yeah, Toyota definitely looks like the dominant car. Do you think that's, again, we talk about strategies. So do you think that's something that you're going to weigh heavily into your picks?
Yeah, I do like the Toyotas just because we talked about this in last week's show, that Toyota, it was kind of a varying strategy of Toyota versus Hendrick. Hendrick had better stats on tracks like Loudon, but Toyota had better stats at Loudon, but backed their way into it, and Toyota dominated that weekend. I feel like Toyota can dominate this weekend. They're starting to turn it back around, which we all thought this was going to happen. So, I look at more Toyota heavy. I mean, they led 66.2% of the laps last year. JGR led 102 of one of those 6 laps themselves. The others was for the 2311 camp. They just seem to have it going on at Pocono. So I feel like Toyota heavy, and Ford's only won 2 races all year, right? So that's the one thing you got to look at. But Chevy could struggle this weekend too. I'm not too high on some of the Chevy drivers per se specifically for this race. So I think the door's open. I think you got Toyota, and then it's kind of jumbled there behind.
And look, I think it is. You would think, and we're almost there to the playoffs, but you would think that we're going to get a win, at least one win from RFK. So that should be coming, the kind of season they've had. And you would think Harvick's going to get a win. The rest of the guys still up in the air, but I think we'll get more wins from Ford soon.
I do too. I do think Harvick's close, and Keselowski. I'm high on both of them this week, just because Harvick. I mean, they were good last year, and they seem better this year as far as Keselowski and RFK at least. And Harvick's kind of right on course to what he was last year. We know he can win. We know he knows his way around that track. So I wouldn't count him out either.
Okay, so let's pick how many we all agreed upon. What's your guess?
3?
Close. It's 2.
2.
Now, how about this though? This I've never seen before. You have 11 picks. Okay. I have 9 of those.
Wow.
Yes. The only 2 that I don't have from your group. Big surprise. Come on, you can guess it. Yep.
Yep, I'm going to assume the top guys.
Your top 2, Hamlin and Truex. Otherwise, we're almost – well, I have other drivers, though. But out of your lot, I've got 9. That's the best way of saying is I have 9 of your 11 because I have, I think, 14 picks or 13 picks. Okay, so the 2 – who do you think the 2 are that we all agreed upon?
Larson?
Correct.
And Blaney?
Correct.
Okay.
That's it. You hit one. Those are the 2. And so, so let's start at those top 3, Truex, Hamlin, and Kyle Busch. And see, for me, it was also easier to say, okay, I'll get away from here because the favorites, because 5-1 is such a low number to begin with. Truex winning back-to-back, that's going to be tough. Throw in the fact that he hasn't had a top 5 in his last 5 trips. He's only had 4 in his last 15, 6 ever in 33. He's only led 237 career laps. He's led over 31 laps just once. And that was in his win in 2015, one of his wins. That was back in 1997. No, that was 97 laps. Yes. So he's led over 31 laps just once, and that was the 97 laps that he led in his 2015 win. So just not enough for me to go with a 5-1 shot coming off a win. Hamlin, as good as he is there, and you could, of course, talk about his great record there, but and if you look at it, in his last 21 races, he's led over 21 laps just twice, and those were both wins, 19 and 20. And Kyle Busch, if you look at him, he also has a very good resume. 6 top 5s in his last 10 with a runner-up and 4 wins. And he's led 30-plus laps in 8 of his last 11. So out of those, I think Kyle actually has the best. I think he has the best stats for me to pick one of those 3. But I just decided to stay away from them all. You take Hamlin and Truex.
Yeah, Kyle, it was hard for me with RCR to think they're going to jump out and win when I talk about Toyota's pace. Granted, the car he's driving finished 2nd last year in Reddick, but he actually technically finished 4th. It's just the 2 cars in front of him.
Yeah, top 5. Yeah.
Put him 2nd. And like I said, he's been strong. He had 7 straight top 10s going into last weekend, but then they had a miserable weekend. So it'd be hard for me to think they're going to go from last weekend to first this weekend. So that's the only reason I punted on him. Truex, I almost went the same boat, like you were saying. He's only gone back-to-back wins once in his career. Wow. It's the only time he's done that. So to think of do it twice in a season where it's hard to win 2 in a row, I was skeptical, but I also was like, he's on such a hot streak, I could also see him doing it. So that's the only reason I went his way.
Well, you took him last week.
Exactly. I had to keep him. And then Hamlin, so this has kind of been his playground. I think he's kind of backing his way into this a little bit. I didn't like the number, but it's also – this is a really good track for him. And I think an even better play, what you could probably do is you could parlay if you feel real strong. Like, I think the winner's into one of these guys, but I'm also think maybe somebody else could steal it. You could get minus 135 for all 3 of them on the top 5 finish and parlay it, thinking, hey, I think these 3 will finish in the top 5 and get minus 135 and parlay it. That would also be a smart play. And I'll throw some of those stats out because I looked these up coming in with top 5 and top 3 finishes on DraftKings for these guys. That's another play, another offer we can give our viewers if you want to. If you also don't think necessarily, I don't know if they're going to win, but you feel strong that they can be up front, there is that option. They're also plus 150 for a top three. So if you think top five minus 135, top three 150, you can parlay them any way you want, or they're plus 550 for the win. So you've got some options there with those three. If you want to, I'm gonna maybe do a pack of a parlay with top three and top fives, and then go race win for else. You could do that too.
Yeah, if you're just talking about winning the race, we talked about this before, this strategy before, especially if you have three drivers that are very close and you don't know which way to go. It's just a very dangerous way to go into a race because you can go, I'll take 2 out of 3. Well, then the other guy win. It's just, and you can't take all 3 because at 5-1 is too low of a number. So that's kind of why it wasn't that difficult for me to pass them up this week. Moving on, and again, as we go over these drivers, we've taken them both, and that's Larson. See, I like Larson already because I'm getting 2 extra points. So not that he's have the record as those guys, but because he's never won, but he was 5th last year. He's got 5 top 15s out of 15. He did win an Xfinity Series race. I believe that was the first one they ever ran there in 2016. And most importantly, he has 5 top 10s in his last 6 races coming in. So he's really close with 4 of those top 5s. So he's really close. And I'm getting 7-1.
Yeah, he's a good one if you see like top Chevrolet driver. If you want to get a little bit better than Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson should be there. And then you got to think, in the first race of 2021, the only reason he finished 9th was because, remember, his tire went down while leading on the final lap, which handed the win to Kyle Busch. That doesn't happen. Kyle Larson wins that race. So he's hot on the season. He's plus 110 for a top 5. I feel really good about that. So you want to get plus money for a top 5. Larson's a really strong play for a top 5. If you think a top 3, plus 200. That's a good number to snag right now for a top 3 finish for him. And if you parlay, let's just say you think Larson top 3 and you want to get Truex Hamlin top 5 and parlay that, you're getting better the odds than one of them winning. So that's probably a stronger play if you want to go that route. But for an outright win, Larson's probably the best. Out of those 4, it's the safest you feel as far as what you're getting a better number.
Neither one of us went with Byron. CJ did, I believe. And Byron, only 2 top 5s out of 9, 12th last year. I just don't see any reason to go with Byron this week unless you just like the odds.
Yeah, if he was double digits, I would have probably thought about it, but plus 900, I was like, no way. Originally, I had him in my sleeper category. He was like, I'm going to have him in a sleeper. I'm going to see what the odds come out. And then plus 900.
Yeah, not a sleeper. Yeah.
No. You're in the favorite category with those odds, and you shouldn't be a favorite there. So
Blaney,
punted on him.
We all have Blaney, 11-1, 6 top 10s out of 13. He has a win, a couple top 5s overall, wrecked last year. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's for me, it's just the fact that in the last couple of races, he's going in the right direction. Don't care about what happened on pit road because that kind of fluky kind of deal. But, yeah, most importantly, you're getting 11-1. You're still not getting favorite odds for Ryan Blaney. So every week, if you take him, you're still getting good odds.
Yeah, and he was 4th in stage 1 last year and 2nd in stage 2. He qualified 6th. So he was running up front. He just got caught up in that lap 135 crash. It wasn't of his doing. He was caught up in it. So, yeah, I think that was a good number for him. And top 5, again, we'll talk that number. He's plus 150. So you're also getting plus 150 for a top 5 finish out of him, which, again, I think he probably has a top 5 at it. As long as the luck goes his way, pit crew aside, yeah, he should finish in the top 5. So strong play out of him.
12-1 drivers, and then neither one of us took Chastain or Elliott. Chastain has never had a top 20 in 7 trips, even though probably deserved better last year. He was involved in, I don't remember, you tell me how he was involved in the crash.
Okay.
That was the payback one. He led 16 laps in the race. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, though, that's not good is he's finished in the 20s. I think you could say 23rd or worse in 6 of his last 8 races. That's just not good for 12-1 That surprised
No.
me. Elliott 12-1. You might think, well, we're getting a bargain, but still, Elliott now is going back the opposite way. 12th and 13th in his last two races. Did not lead a lap last year and hasn't led a lap in his last 6 races at Pocono, even though he has a pretty decent record there.
Yeah, he's been solid, but not great. And like I said, the only reason he got the win last year because it was handed to him. So I don't feel like he's running well right now, and I honestly feel I've changed my stance on him in the other weeks. I think he's going to have to win. I think they're not running good enough. They're going to have
well,
to
that's
find
because he was doing the top 5 deal, as we said. Hey, keep doing that.
It was working.
Yeah, you're fine, but you can't keep doing it.
No, so him and Chastain, yeah, I'm not high on either of them this week. They're backing their way into this weekend. They just don't feel like race-winning contenders, especially if this race has the tendency to have a long green flag run in the stage. The Toyota's got more speed right now than I feel it. They're going to have to probably swing for the fence and go for a strategy. And I think Chastain with the win already can probably do the same. So sometimes it doesn't always work out for a good finish. Maybe it does, but to shoot for a finish like that at 12-1, just they weren't worth it this week.
Bell and Reddick, we both have them. And Bell, a couple top 5s out of 5. 4th last year, led 14 laps. Reddick has gotten just about better in each of his races, his 5 Cup races, including the runner-up last year. He had a runner-up finish in an Xfinity Series race. I believe it was the last one he ran. And he is coming off his first top 10 since the Coke 600. So I don't like the fact he's never led a lap there, but 14-1 for Bell and Reddick. Those odds are good enough for me and apparently good enough for you. Well, actually, you have one of the two. You just have Reddick.
Yeah, Bell, I had him originally, but what scared me is he's not had a top 5 since Bristol Dirt.
Yeah, we keep saying that. Well, I know.
Yep.
And it keeps happening.
And even last week, where it's like, okay, it's going to end. He's on the pole. He's running well. 2 pit problems, loose wheel, had to pit again, and he crashed. So I just felt like it just doesn't feel right. A top 5, I don't like the top 5 bet at plus 190 with him because I feel like if he's giving me the top 5, he's probably going to have a chance to win. So you might as well go all in at the plus 1,400 on him. And Reddick, 11th, 9th, and 2nd is 3 starts in our RCR Chevy. Now he's in a Toyota, and we talked about what Toyotas can do there. So I feel like that was a bargain. Now that he's got that top 10, he's finally he's reversed the downward slide. A lot of times Reddick's been a streaky driver like that. Once you get him back going, he starts going. So 1,400 was a good play for me.
The last of the contenders before we go to the long shots to round out the report, Harvick Logano at 16-1. So we both have Harvick, 15 career top 5s, just 1 win. Which is a little bit surprising. Hasn't led a lap in his last 3, but he's coming off the 4th place finish. 16-1 odds are pretty good for a driver that's had as many top 5s as he's had there. Logano, only 4 top 5s out of 27 races. 2nd last week, 20th last year, just 1 win out of 27. I still don't feel like overly confident about Logano's speed. I think sometimes it looks like whenever he's had some good results this year, it's been track positioning somehow. He gets into a position and he's just able to hold on late. But Harvick was the better play.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Harvick, he's got 5 runner-up finishes and last 17 starts at Pocono. So that made me feel good. Plus, 27th last year is a little different in the sense that he was caught up in that same crash Blaney was in.
Okay.
He was 4th in the 2nd stage. So he was up front. He was just in that same crash. And then I looked for Logano. So I like Harvick at plus 1,600. He's plus 450 for a top 3 and plus 190 for a top 5. So if you snag that plus 190 number and parlay with the guys we talked about earlier, you're probably looking pretty good. And Logano seems he's in a stretch right now like he was last year. When you look at, he finished 17th at Sonoma, 27th at Road America, 26th at Atlanta, 24th Loudon. This year, similar races, 3rd in Sonoma, 8th on the street race, which replaced Road America, 17th Atlanta, 2nd. He's having similar results, a little bit better, but similar. He was 20th here last year. So I expect maybe a top 15, but not necessarily a top 10. So I just don't think he's he's got to win. He could go off strategy and swing for the fences. Might get a lucky caution while doing so, but you're chasing him at 16-1. I don't like to chase when you go to that point.
And then the long shots. So we both have Suarez, Wallace, Bowman, Keselowski, and Almirola. I've added I've added I added those a buck on 4 drivers: Jones, McDowell, Cindric, and Briscoe. But Suarez had the second not too long ago at Atlanta. Has a good resume here. Third last year. Wallace, eighth last week. Eighth and fifth in his last 2 Pocono starts. Bowman has a good resume overall and is getting 35-1. Keselowski really like the 35-1 odds. Fifth and sixth last 2 races. He's starting to come on. 12 top 12s in his last 14 at Pocono with 8 top 5s and 3 runner-ups. Busher, yes, he won in the rain, but overall, I think he's fared pretty well at this track, and you're getting 60-1. And then Almirola, 4 top 10s, 2 top 5s in his last 9. He led 61 laps in that 2020 race from the pole, finished third. Almost contended last week, of course, got into trouble. Who knows what happens if he doesn't? And the odds of those guys, like Almirola and the rest, I think were just too crazy for me to not at least put a buck on those guys I mentioned, but especially Almirola at 130-1.
Yeah, Almirola, that was crazy because you look at Atlanta, he had speed too. He was on the pole. And then last week, it just his pit crew didn't tighten his tire. And to me, not only that, if you're going to go into plus 130, which you should, he's plus 1,500 for a top 5. At least throw a couple bucks his way for a top 5. I mean, if you think he's going to chance to win, which I do, because you see when Harvick's his teammate, plus 1,500 for a top 5, and then you might as well double down. He's plus 3,000 for a top 3. And we've seen what he can do. So I like Almirola a lot. Keselowski, same way. He's plus 450 for a top 5. So you're basically can take him thinking, because I think he'll finish in the top 5. I think he's that good. You're almost getting the same odds as you're getting to pick Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Truex for a win. He's plus 450, so that's a smart play there. Bowman, as you said, he's slumping, but 35-1 for a Hendrick guy who needs a win, no brainer. You got to sneak that way. And Suarez, he was 3rd and 6th in the pair of stages last year too. Same way, he's slumping. He's got 1 top 5 finish his last 18 races. That was in Atlanta, but he's 28-1. So it's another one.
He was runner-up in 2018 at Pocono, and he also had 2 good Xfinity Series starts there.
Yep. So he knows his way around there. So those are definitely some sleepers that. And Jones, he's not a bad play for his odds. He's finished 3rd. He finished 3rd in the second stage and 9th in that race last year. He's got 7 top 8 finishes in his previous 10 starts, 3 top 11 finishes in his last 4 races on the season. So definitely a play there for him as well. And McDowell, the only thing that scared me with him, he doesn't have the luxury of he's going to have to take the stage points. So people that the C's part and these guys are going to play the strategy because he's right there on that bubble.
Okay.
I feel like for him, he's gonna have to play it safe. For him, Bubba kind of scared me a little bit of that sense too, is when you're on the bubble, Suarez too, you can throw in there. You got to take the stage points if the people pit before you, and you've got to take them because that could come down to making it. But I also feel in Bubba's standpoint, he's got a fast car to make up for it. Suarez last year, similar deal. So we'll have to see what
McDowell could always make it up on the road course, and he's got a couple of races, including Daytona, that he could still get it. And 5 top 15s in his last 6 races for McDowell, with 4 top 10s and 1 top 5.
I mean, you got a front row motorsports car right now in the playoffs. He's a spot in the playoffs. So. And they're definitely out kicking their coverage. You don't want to ruin that momentum right now.
And Jones has almost 50% career top 5s at Pocono. And finally, as we've been mentioning, he's starting to race well. In his last 4 races, he's finished 11th or better 3 times, all top 20s. So keep an eye there. Don't forget, Briscoe won an Xfinity race in 2020. Cindric won an Xfinity race in 2021. Custer won one, and Gregson also won Xfinity Series races. Custer and Gregson are 1,000-1. So
it's crazy.
It could rain. You never know.
You never know.
No, it can't rain.
Well, it's not. But yeah.
Got to eliminate that possibility. All right. So anyway, what's next week?
Richmond. Return to Richmond.
Okay. What happened first time?
That was Hendrick guys dominated, Truex dominated. Hendrick guys stole the win in the end. Late cautions kind of.
Oh, the Larson win.
The tire. Remember when Truex was out of tires?
Oh,
the race won?
Yes. That's the one Truex should have won. Okay.
Yep.
So there you go. Maybe Truex could be a good play next week.
Yep.
And then, hey, don't forget, check out qualifying. What you want is keep your fingers crossed that qualifying works in your favor, because if it does, maybe the odds go back a little bit for one of those 5-1 drivers. And as we said, qualifying does not matter. So maybe that's the strategy. Don't worry about putting your bet in for one of those favorites, if that's your way of wagering this week, until after qualifying.
Yep.
All right, Eric. We will talk again next Tuesday, hopefully. Again, another Thursday show with the rain delay deal. So I'll talk to you in a few days.
Yep. Sounds good. Talk to you then.